Hello, fight fans. To close out this wild year of 2023, I want to give my year-end review, my DJC's 2023 of the Year MMA Awards. And I mean, to say the least, this year for MMA and the UFC, the 30-year anniversary has just been insane. I mean, 30 years in this sport, this is what we fans were blessed with. I mean, we were spoiled, man. Like, so many crazy, wild moments, a lot of big upsets, a lot of big returns, which I'm going to get into later in this video, a lot of crazy fights as well, and some big cards. I mean, this was truly a milestone, special year that fans are going to remember for many decades to come. And the award that I'm going to start with, I'm going to go with Fight of the Year, and it's going to be a title fight. And I mean, there's been like a lot of good, fights this year, and non-title fights. But as far as title fights, there's been only very few, like back and forth 5-round wars. A lot of the title fights this year were either like, one-sided, one-way traffic beatdowns or kind of boring 5-round fights. There was Moreno versus Pantoja. Then there was also Makhachev versus Volkanovski. But the one I'm going to choose between the two, the winner for me is Makhachev versus Volkanovski 1. And my reasons for choosing this is just the stakes of this matchup. Alexander Volkanovski, the featherweight champion, going up in weight, doing something he's fought up in weight before, but still challenging for double champ status against the seemingly unstoppable Islam Makhachev, and doing better than a lot of people expected, doing better than what the fans gave him credit for in the lead up, showing a lot of resistance to the grappling of Islam, surprising fans with his grappling defense against, Islam Makhachev, and hurting him on the feet. But then even on the flip side, Islam Makhachev also surprised people with his striking against Volkanovski. He kind of outstruck him in moments. He also was able to stun Alexander Volkanovski. I mean, it was just a tooth and nail competitive fight that it had me on the edge of my seat. Like, this fight was crazy on multiple different levels, and this was like one of my most rewatched title fights of this year, and in general, overall, one of my most rewatched fights of the year. It was just a truly special fight, good fight. Sorry, Moreno Pantoja, but for me, this one takes the cake, and for the reasons that I just mentioned. Women's MMA Fight of the Year, yeah, I'm doing that. Clearly goes to Irene Aldana versus Carol Rosa. Name a better women's MMA fight this year than this one. I mean, I know we had Shevchenko versus Grasso, but this one I think was the better fight. Way more entertaining fight. I mean, this was just a just bleed fight in women's MMA. We don't see a whole lot of those very often, and women's MMA gets a lot of slack, for being kind of boring. A lot of the male fans don't like it, but this fight put women's MMA on the map. It was a back and forth war. Both women went out there. They put everything, and I mean everything, on the line. Aldana got her legs destroyed in the first round. She had some early adversity, but hey, round 2 and 3, she switched on, turned up the heat, delivered the damage, but Rosa delivered it right back. And hey, if you want to show your friends a women's MMA fight, this is the fight you show them. Irene Aldana versus Carol Rosa. Now, male fighter of the year. This one was a bit of a tough choice because we did have Islam and we did have Sean Strickland, who had a great year. Neither Makhachev or Strickland lost this year, but I got to go with Alex Pereira because even though he did start the year with a loss and in devastating fashion, it's not about how you start. It's about how you finish. And Alex Pereira, he finished the year strong. I mean, he went from getting knocked out in the beginning of the year to lose his middleweight title to then flip the script, turn around in like 3 months, turn the page, take over the light heavyweight division, where a lot of people were unsure of how he would do. He beats the number one contender, or wins a number one contender fight, earns a title shot, and then he knocks out Yuri Prohaska to win a second belt, becomes the 205 champion after he was already the middleweight champion like 9 months prior. I mean, that is just insane. I mean, that's just impressive seeing what Pereira was able to do and accomplish within a year. So for me, that's why Alex Pereira gets Male Fighter of the Year. Now, upset of the year, there were a lot of crazy upsets in the year 2023. I know we had Duplessis beating Robert Whittaker. No one saw that coming. I know Israel Adesanya lost to Sean Strickland. That was insane. Suga beat the Funk Master. But of all upsets, this is number one for me. And why? Because Israel Adesanya, he already lost one fight prior. Robert Whittaker was not a champion. He was not he was a good number one contender, but he was not a dominant champion. And then neither was really Aljamain Sterling, even though style-wise it seemed like he should have easily beat O'Malley. Valentina Shevchenko is an all-time great, 7-time defending champion in women's MMA, most title defenses in women's MMA history, was undefeated, 8-0 in the women's flyweight division, and only 2 losses in the UFC to one person, Amanda Nunes, who is also the greatest of all time, above her, in my opinion. Valentina went on to not lose for 5 years, dominated women's flyweight, and the only person who came close to beating her was Tyler Santos, and took her to a split decision, but that was the only person that people really would have given a chance to beat Val. But it was Alexa Grasso, of all people, to do it, which no one would have seen coming except for me, because I'm a genius, and I called this upset. I mean, Grasso went out there, and I mean, she rose to the occasion. She beat Valentina Shevchenko where she's supposed to be best at. She was seen as like unstoppable, good everywhere, unbeatable in the stand-up, went toe-to-toe with Nunes for 5 rounds, arguably won. Grasso outboxes her. Valentina's never been finished before. Alexa Grasso finishes her and submits her as well, which, again, no one and their mama expected Alexa Grasso to go out there and do that. Just the prospect of Valentina Shevchenko losing is just insane. So for this, Alexa Grasso deserves upset of the year. Now, KO of the year. There were a lot of great KOs this year. I mean, we just had Josh Emmett. I thought of putting him on here, but I could not resist. I could not resist awarding Israel Adesanya with knockout of the year. Just the brutality of this knockout. The way he put Alex Pereira to sleep. Alex Pereira's never been knocked out like that. Not even in kickboxing. He's been TKO'd, but knocked out cold. And Adesanya's never laid a guy out like that in a while. I mean, that was just huge. It was a cold knockout. The celebration was cold. And then even the stakes, you know. A lot was at stake in this fight. Israel Adesanya had an 8-mile moment. He needed this win more than anything because he was behind in this series. And he got this fight back in blood. He got it back in the best way possible for himself and the worst way for Alex Pereira. Just one of the best knockouts that I've ever seen. The shot that he caught Pereira with was beautiful. The way he absolutely sniped him, followed by that hammer fist, and the way Pereira is just laid out right here on the canvas. I'm sorry, but yeah, Izzy's the winner for me in this one. Now let's see what else we got here. Submission of the year. Davy Grant versus Rafael Assunção. Davy Grant has 9 submissions, and Assunção has been submitted 3 times. But of all outcomes in this matchup, did anyone see Davy Grant winning this fight by submission? Because, okay, never mind. I'm checking his record. He has 4 knockout wins, 9 subs. But I never would have thought he would sub Assunção. And then a reverse triangle choke, too, against a high-level jiu-jitsu black belt like Assunção, and he choked him unconscious. I mean, being reverse triangled is just embarrassing. That's a humiliating submission. And the fact that Davy Grant did that to Rafael Assunção, I mean, that's just an impressive submission, and I had to go with this. Next up, Comeback fighter of the year, undoubtedly. You got to give it to Jon Jones. I mean, he was off for 3 years, and nobody knew what to expect from him. A lot of people thought he was washed. His last few performances before the layoff were kind of indicative that Jon Jones kind of is past it. I mean, close fights with Thiago Santos, Dominic Reyes, couldn't finish Anthony Smith, and none of those fights aged well. And Ciryl Gane, I mean, he was seen as that guy who did good against Ngannou and, you know, was undefeated prior to Ngannou, bounced back, knocked out Tuivasa. A lot of people expected Jon Jones to come back and flop against Ciryl Gane. But what does Jon Jones do like the all-time great that he is? He comes back and he steamrolls Ciryl Gane, takes him down in under a minute, and gets a guillotine and becomes the UFC heavyweight champion after having status as a former light heavyweight champion. I mean, that's just big in Jon Jones' career. And for me, that earns him comeback fighter of the year. Now, event of the year, there were a lot of really good events, a lot of good pay-per-views, a lot of good fight nights. I was contemplating UFC Austin, UFC 295, but UFC 285, that was such a special card. A lot of good fights on this card, a lot of finishes on this card. The prelims were good, entertaining, and then the main card, like 4 out of the 5 fights, I believe, ended in finishes. All of the finishes on the main card were submissions. I mean, Jeff Neal and Shavkat was a submission win for Shavkat, but that fight was insane. One of the highlights of this card, and then seeing Alexa Grasso shock the world against Valentina Shevchenko and becoming champion, plus Jon Jones returning and dominating and easily finishing Ciryl Gane. And then we had Duplessis versus Brunson on that card as well, which is a very entertaining, action-packed fight. I mean, this card for me checked all the boxes, like entertainment, craziness, and just satisfaction. Like, usually I never walk away from a fight card 100% happy. There's always that one fight that kind of ruins it for me, but this card, I was not disappointed. This card for me was like UFC 217, UFC 261-esque for me. That's how special and magical that night felt. Now moving on, performance of the year. I got to give it to Sean Strickland when he beat up Israel Adesanya for 5 rounds. I could have given him fighter of the year. This performance could have given him fighter of the year. But for that reason, I'm making up by giving him performance of the year, because he put a clinic on Israel Adesanya. And the reason why I'm awarding him performance of the year is not only because of his performance, but who he did it to and how he did it. Israel Adesanya, known as the best striker in the middleweight division. No one can beat him on the feet. You have to take him down to beat him. But then his takedown defense is so good, it makes you question, how are you going to beat this guy? And then he just knocked out his supposed nightmare, Alex Pereira. Then comes Sean Strickland, walks this guy down for 5 rounds, shuts down Israel Adesanya's offense, shows amazing defense, and just pieces up Israel Adesanya for 5 rounds, shuts him down at his own game. And Adesanya couldn't find much success apart from the 2nd round. I mean, this was total domination. Like, of all the title fights this year, this was the most impressive performance, in my opinion. And I hated including this because Adesanya is one of my favorite fighters. But I can't be biased, man. Sean Strickland undoubtedly deserves this. And then, moments of the year. Sugar Sean O'Malley becoming UFC champion. I mean, this was huge because of everything that went into this fight. Everyone kind of saw Sean O'Malley as like this clown. He wasn't supposed to be anything. He was supposed to be this hype train that was going to get ended by Aljamain Sterling, who was on track to becoming the bantamweight GOAT. Sugar Sean O'Malley goes out there. He surprises people when he's able to defend takedowns, which not many people thought he could do. And then once he did, that was a wrap. He put Sterling away, and he took the belt away from Sterling. and lived up to his name, lived up to that star potential, showed the world that he is the superstar that he always thought he was, you know. So congrats to Sean O'Malley, man. I mean, this moment was just, it was beautiful to watch. It was amazing. I was very happy for Sean O'Malley. I mean, there's also Amanda Nunes laying down the gloves, but O'Malley becoming champion was just, it was so surreal, you know. I love this moment, and I had to give it moment of the year. Now, debut fighter of the year, I'm giving this one to Diego Lopez. There were a lot of, you know, impressive debut fighters in the year of 2023. But for me, I got to give it to Diego Lopez because even though he started off his UFC career with a loss, the performance is what really counted because he was an underdog. It was short notice. It was against Movsar Evloev. He went the distance, survived, but he didn't just survive. I mean, he had Diego Lopez in trouble. I believe he may have hurt him in the stand-up. I can't quite remember, but I do remember he had a lot of like deep submission attempts in there against Movsar Evloev. Moments where he nearly ended the fight and won a lot of fans over. And then he went on to live up to that performance by destroying Gavin Tucker and Pat Sabatini in the first round. And Diego Lopez, this is a prospect to look out for in 2024. Now, female fighter of the year, I'm giving this to Alexa Grasso simply because she shook up the world when she dethroned Valentina. And then the rematch as well. Even though it was a draw, technically she still defended her belt. You know, she gave it her all. A lot of people thought the first one may have been a fluke and that it was going to be corrected in the rematch like Nunes Pena 2, but no. Grasso went out there, held her ground, made it a very close fight, showed why she was the champion. But not only that, not only did she win the belt and have that good second fight with Valentina, she became pound for pound number one in the women's MMA pound for pound rankings, which is another huge accomplishment. World champ, pound for pound number one. That warrants Alexa Grasso female fighter of the year. Now that's it for my year-end awards. Thank you for watching. Be sure to like, subscribe, comment, share, and yeah, peace out.